here. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Patrick Von Dillon. On behalf of the San Antonio Family Association, welcome you to another session of Get to Know the Northeast ISD School Board Trustee candidate. This week, we are privileged to have with us District 1 candidate, Michael Osborn. And I believe that'll be, will that be Mike on the ballot, or how would it be?
It's going to be Mike on the ballot.
Mike Osborn, District 1 on this. And this is an educational opportunity to get to know the people running for Northeast Independent School District Board of Trustees. So this is not an endorsement, and we look forward to having this discussion with every candidate, and every candidate is being invited to attend these sessions and to visit with us so that the public, the voting public, can get to know who is running to represent them. Some of them have been there for a long time. Others are new candidates, although they've been active in this process and with their children and grandchildren's learning and with NEISD. So thank you very much for joining us. You can watch us on this stream on YouTube and on Facebook, and we welcome your feedback. So help us improve the situation. So as we begin all of our events and educational opportunities, we begin in prayer. So let us begin in doing that, and please forgive us for any technical issues. We are learning to do this through a mastered and skilled young man. I say young man, but in his 20s, but he's teaching us older people how to deal with these virtual meetings. And so please bear with us as we go through this and any hiccups. And thank you very much. On behalf of the San Antonio Family Association, we welcome you. Let us begin. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Asking for the one triune God to pour his grace upon us. We sit before you, Holy Spirit, conscious of our sinfulness, but aware that we gather in your name. Come to us, remain with us, and enlighten our hearts. Give us light and strength to know your will, to make it our own, and to live it in our lives. Guide us by your wisdom, support us by your power, for you are God, sharing the glory of Father and Son. You desire justice for all. Enable us to uphold the rights of others. Do not allow us to be misled by ignorance or corrupted by fear or favor. Unite us to yourself in the bond of love, and keep us faithful to all that is true. As we gather in your name, may we temper justice with love, so that all our decisions may be pleasing to you and earn the reward promised of good and faithful servants. We ask this of you, who live and reign with the Father and the Son, one God, forever and ever. Amen. So thank you very much for joining us in that prayer. And on behalf of the San Antonio Family Association, my name is Patrick Von Dillon. We welcome you to this educational series on Get to Know the Northeast Independent School District candidate. In this case, District 1 candidate, Mike Osborn, and it will read on the November 3rd ballot as Mike Osborn, District 1. So without further ado, and we want to keep this to an hour. We didn't do so good. I didn't do so good on that last week, even though we had a great interview. And we're going to challenge Mr. Osborn to be as clear, concise as he can be, as an engineer is, and so we can stick to an hour and you can maintain your attention. So, Mike, without further ado, who are you, and tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm a native San Antonian. Went to Catholic schools through 12th grade, thanks to my loving, caring parents. And private school education back then was a whole lot less. But with 7 children, things still were tight at times. So, but we always had enough to eat. We didn't have weight problems. But then I went to SAC for a couple of years, and then transferred to UT, got a degree in zoology. Worked for 3 years as a medical technologist, got training as a medical technologist at Baptist Hospital downtown, and then worked for 3 years in the hospital laboratory, and then decided that wasn't for me, that I went back to school and got a degree in electrical engineering, and then worked for a utility right out of school, and was a substation engineer, distribution and substation engineer. And then we decided that we were getting roots in Amarillo, and we made the decision that it was either decide to stay up there or move back home to San Antonio. And both of us had grown up with extended family, and that was very important to us. So we picked up and moved, and we've been back here ever since, in the same home for 37 years now, as when we moved back to San Antonio in '83.
Wow, I had no idea you went to Amarillo. You were from Amarillo.
Yeah.
I lived there for a while.
So Flatlander country.
Yeah, it is quite different.
Except for the canyon south of town. So.
Yeah, Palantir is beautiful.
Yeah. So then I worked as an electrical engineer, got a consulting job here, and worked for a commercial consultant and an MEP, which people refer to in the profession as an MEP, mechanical electrical plumbing engineering. And then worked for a power consultant. We were consultants to the water board, to New Braunfels Utilities, Medina Electric Co-op, in transmission, but also in distribution. And of course, water board, it was their pumping stations, and I was in charge of those things. So I worked closely with the directors and at the water board and their technicians out in the field. Mm-hmm. So, and then I decided to, as the economy was changing, as the economy always changes, I got a position in civil service out at Lackland. And so I worked out there for a number of years as the base electrical engineer, and got training in cathodic protection. So I was also the cathodic protection engineer.
That's a new word for me.
Well, if you look it up on the internet, the things that'll come back is Catholic engineer when you say cathodic protection engineer. Yeah, it's a wake up. Nobody's familiar with that.
Right.
But
and how long were you doing that?
Out at Lackland for 14 years, and then I retired from that, and been doing not consulting. Well, I did some consulting jobs back for the oil company in Amarillo, and then for a huge utility, which has facilities in a number of states, up in Columbus, Ohio. And they also operate some utilities down here in Texas, electric utilities. So, so then I retired to volunteer work. Of course, I did a whole lot of volunteer work and engineering profession work while I was working. But then I got involved with, always been involved with church, choir, Eucharistic minister, lector.
Many people in that kind of retirement tell me that they don't know how they got any work done before.
Oh,
you fit that bill as well?
Well, when the work comes looking, sometimes the workers try to hide. So, but if it's something that I believe in, like Meals on Wheels or St. Vincent de Paul at church, where we give out food to the homeless, or not necessarily homeless, but people in need. So I'm in charge of getting the team that goes out and picks up the food at the food bank. And so we go out there twice a month, pick up food, come back, haul it back, and then the ladies at church give it out during the week.
Have you seen a change in that during this COVID pandemic?
Yeah. Last two times we were at the food bank, we were the only one there. And a lot of times you're waiting in line to pull up to the stations to get loaded. But we were the only one there. And so we were in and out, jackrabbit. And so we, it takes up our morning, but it's, I get enough people so that we don't have to bust our backs. We're all getting up there. And so we have different assignments. If somebody's under the weather or something, then they can be the checker to make sure that we got what we.
Well, that's just a little bit of wisdom. That many hands make light work.
Oh yeah. So no, we try not to live the 50-pound bag potatoes, onions, or carrots. Now let me help you. So good. And it's a bunch of great guys.
And how long have you been officially retired from work and doing the?
About 15 years. So.
All right. So which brings us to a different phase of public service, and so in your work with St. Vincent de Paul and Meals on Wheels, you obviously have found the opportunity to have time, or figured you had time, or we're going to make time because of the importance of it, to offer in the people in Northeast Independent School District, District 1, an opportunity to hire you to represent them. So why are you running for school board?
Well, the people, I don't know how you put it, the people hire me by voting for me.
Right.
And I try to give them the biggest bang for their buck. It's a volunteer position, so we don't get any paid. And I don't accept any nepotism or anything like that. So that might be a change. But when my daughters were in school, they went to Northeast schools and they excelled, and my grandchildren now are up and coming, and they're doing very well in school. We've always had excellent teachers, been involved with the teachers in PTA. I was involved with the project graduation and powder puff football for the juniors and seniors. And I'd always drop by school and sit in on a class. And of course, my girls they were special because they were mine. Or
as all of our children are to us. Yeah.
I credit that to my spouse, but they were very good students. So they had fun, but they didn't get in any trouble that we knew of.
Were they involved in the Power Puff games?
Yes.
Those are serious business.
Oh, yes.
Used to be. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I went out and got the shirts made for them and everything else, so we got and for project graduation, we went out, we had one of the students, my daughter had one of the students design the shirt, and then we played with it on the computer, then got it printed, and then gave those out for project graduation. So when I get involved, I usually do stuff, and you're not just a bump on a log, and
right.
not just a joiner. So I like to get involved.
So whatever you get involved in, you take it seriously.
Sure. Otherwise, there's plenty of volunteer opportunities in the community for people to get involved in. And so pick one that you like, and don't just be a joiner.
So take that same philosophy to the Northeast Independent School District Trustee, Board of Trustees. Why again are you running for that?
Well, I had a fantastic second grade teacher. She taught me phonics. She would keep me in during recess. During the hot days, we didn't have air conditioning. The doors were open to help get air conditioning, to get,
windows too. When I grew up,
well, right, but we also kept the door open. And we're in a wooden building, more primitive than the temporary buildings that they have now, but especially. But she would stay in, keep me in, not as a punishment, but she would help me during recess and on my phonics. And so as a second grader, I could pronounce words that adults would come and say, well, ask Mikey how to pronounce, not Mikey, you can call him. Some of my friends, some of my not so nice friends going Mikey, but
the ones that like to give you a hard time.
Sure. But so she helped me with phonics. And then when my daughter was in third grade, I found out that they weren't teaching phonics. But I tried to find out why, but they wouldn't give me an answer as to why they weren't teaching phonics. And I thought that was criminal. How can you educate a child if you don't teach them how to pronounce words? How can people communicate with each other if you can't understand what people are saying? We're in a multicultural, multilingual community. And it's one thing to talk a different language, but when some people can't even understand you have to overlook the people from New England and people from England who actually are supposed to know how to pronounce the language properly. But if you can't communicate coherently, then how do you understand? No wonder we have so many misunderstandings in our society. And then my granddaughter taught herself to write longhand because they don't teach longhand anymore. You know, that's
the basic stuff.
yeah. Somebody made the joke that was because they don't want people to understand to be able to read the Constitution. You know, the actual printed, the actual manuscript.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this was the guy that is a calligrapher, and he made that comment.
That is a lost art form for sure.
It is. It is.
I remember being taught longhand cursive and how nice I could write at one point in time.
My mom's penmanship was perfect.
And your granddaughters? She was working on it. We're still working on it. Good. Oh, good. Good to continue working on it. So tell more about your family then, and well, in brief, so people know a little bit about your family and history. And you talk about your background as far as you. Talk about your daughters a little bit, real quick, and your granddaughters.
My one daughter was in sports, and the other one was in pep squad. I don't know if it was called pep squad, but whatever the squads are called, where you get out and for halftime and whatnot and perform. They both went to Lee High School, and they were given the opportunity midstream to transfer to Churchill because of the mix mash. They had already transferred from Larkspur midstream when Oak Meadow opened up, and which was fine. In fact, one of the teachers moved with them, but so that was done. But they had already developed all their friendships and everything else at Lee, and it was a no-brainer. No, we're staying there. The part of going to school is I'm sorry, we're in this virtual learning situation, but a very important part of school is meeting with your classmates and getting to know your classmates before, after school, and everything else. And my daughters, whenever they went on a date, they went on group dates. Their friends, they didn't get serious. I know there's always the permissive culture out there, but and of course parents were the last to know anything, but they always had wonderful good friends, and we knew who the parents were. We were close to the parents. We knew the kids. They'd come over, and so it was always a wonderful high school environment, middle school and high school environment.
So on that, you think that what's your opinion? And I know Northeast Independent School District was having technical difficulties again this morning with their virtual classrooms. I don't know if it's a Zoom issue or any NEISD problem, but what's your thought process on the COVID-19 pandemic causing and the ruling for right now children still not being in class? Would you like to see children back in class now?
Yes, I would. Having worked in the hospital, when you had patients in isolation, wasn't quarantined, it was isolation. And we'd have to gown up depending on what the patient had. We would have to gown up. I would go in and draw blood from the patient or do an EKG. I'd have to gown up completely to go in there, not so completely as if you were in a research lab with a very contagious and unknown disease. You didn't know what you were working with. And again, we still don't know necessarily exactly what we're working with this disease. And so we've got a learning curve. It's similar to another COVID, the first version of COVID. So they know a whole lot about it. It's not completely unknown. But
so is it safe to go to school in your opinion?
I think it is, but that's up to the parents. When I was about 2 or 3 years old, my uncle got polio. That was back 52 or 53. He got polio. In 3 days, he was dead. Of course, polio has a different etiology. It works on your nervous system. And so I don't know exactly how, it possibly shut down his lungs. That's when the iron lung came into being, was to take care of people with polio. They didn't have any lung capacity. It wasn't that they had a blood problem that affected the exchange. It was their lungs wouldn't work. So
we've seen things that are worse, potentially worse than this.
yes, but he had 3 young children, and maybe the oldest was 4 at most. He had 3 children, and so they grew up without a dad. So when you have something like this, it's a hard decision. But working in the hospital, we isolated, we quarantined the patients. The nurses are working with them. They know they are working on a constant basis. My wife worked in intensive care. And so, sometimes she stayed in the room during the whole shift rather than coming in and going out and having to disrobe and
right.
Whatnot, and regown, not disrobe, to take the
So
regowns.
leave it to the parents for their decision. Open the schools, leave it to the parents who want to send their kids
Well,
back or not.
now that we know more about it, we know a whole lot more about it. When I was talking to my son-in-law, who's a doctor, we were at one of my grandson's basketball games, and we were talking, and I said, well, my greatest fear is the fear that was before there was isolation. They were still able to go out and play, and before the shutdown. And we agreed that the biggest problem is the fear that this is generating in people. And fear of the unknown can be paralyzing. So having worked in the hospital with those things, taking samples that could be contaminated, we always used proper technique. When I worked in a lab at SAC, in the zoology lab, I worked with cultures. And so we made our own culture medium, our Petri dishes. I made those and everything else, poured them and everything else. Well, they had to be without contamination.
Right.
For the nurses to come in and use them to
Right.
grow stuff, and then having to work with that in the hospital. So, there's always germs out there. There's germs right there between you and me now, even without COVID. So just like there's radio waves there.
Right.
So
Your main high school in District 1 is which high school?
Churchill.
I think it was Churchill who had a great quote about the greatest thing to fear, the greatest concern about fear is fear itself. And so interesting, it would be Churchill in your district there. And
I think that was Roseville.
was it Roosevelt? Okay. Might have been about the same time, right? Then.
Yes. Churchill was never. Four. Now, of course, Churchill had a bounty on his head. When he was down in South Africa, he had a $25 bounty on his head. And so I looked into that, and I thought, well, gosh, was it because of something that he did really bad during that Boer War? No, he was a correspondent, but they had captured him and he had escaped. And so they put a dead or alive bounty. Well, can you imagine?
He was a public official. So you're running for office that would make you a public official if you were elected. And if
I hope I don't have a bounty.
If you have a bounty on your head, is that going to change the way you're going to vote and the way you're going to behave on to do what's right and good for the children of Northeast Independent School District?
No, even though I don't have concealed carry, I'm not concerned about that. So
very good. And we see on a personal note, what do you like to do for recreation?
I putter around on the golf course once in a while with my buddies. Wonderful buddies on the golf course. I like to go out and exercise. I'm a member of the JCC. That's pretty much shut down right now. But I like to go work out at the JCC. the rabbi at one of the temples here and one of the Protestant ministers, we would meet along with the manager of the JCC. We would meet during lunch and play basketball.
Okay.
And that was a very animated.
You ever throw any elbows?
Game. No, but and you really have to be careful, because we're not as adept as some players.
Right.
So you have to be careful when playing.
No, I was just joking.
But we get out there and play with some of the younger children.
Yeah, that's good.
Some of the younger children also. And but anyway, so we have spirited games.
Good. So tell us, I know you had an opportunity to, I think, to do some speaking. Tell us why you're running and for, I know you said a little bit why you're running, but what are your platform issues for your campaign?
Well, I've seen that there is not a openness with the board. My opponent during one of the meetings made the statement out of frustration, and I can understand the frustration, that people don't come to board meetings. Well, after watching the board meetings, I can understand why the people would be dissuaded from coming, because they're not open to input. They wait until the end of a board meeting to get any input from the residents. They have their executive meeting first on the agenda. As far as I'm concerned, they could take care of that before the board meeting time, and just announce, well, the board meeting is going to start at 5:30 and not at 5, rather than the people coming in and having to wait around and then wait till the end, even the end of all business, in order to provide some comments.
So you have your platform issue summarized, or you can give us a bullet point list of those platform issues, and then maybe go into each one after you state what they are.
Well, I see that the schooling, the grading for our students is that we have an average grade of 80% for math, and I think it's 77% for English and language skills. Those are C's in my book. And even though they may be a C+, I don't think with a 95% graduation rate that the district touts, that if you're just graduating average students in the main, that you're actually doing a good job. You talked about the problems doing their virtual learning. As a substation engineer, I'm responsible for your lights being on 24/7, 365. I'm responsible. Our goal is 6 nines. That's 99.9999% that your lights are going to be on. And when we have a problem, we want the lights to turn off to protect the system so that it can come back up and everything. So we strive for 100%, and we feel that we're doing okay, that we have achieved our goal. if we're at 6 nines of reliability. So the board at one of their meetings decided to lower their target. I don't see how you can lower your target and still hit a high mark. So you have to aim for the bullseye and be dissatisfied if you don't hit the bullseye. That's not going to mean that you're going to hit it all the time with all the students that you have. But that doesn't mean that the student that's not in the bullseye isn't doing the best he can be, best he can do. So you provide the atmosphere, the program, the curriculum for the students and the teachers. We wouldn't have a school if we didn't have students, and we wouldn't be able to have a school if we didn't have dedicated, qualified, responsible, loving teachers that we do have.
Okay, that was your first issue. What were the other issues?
Well, I went to a board meeting. It wasn't a board meeting. It was supposed to be an open presentation of a curriculum that they were considering changing to a new sex ed curriculum. And so they had a deal over at Blossom. I forget the name of the center that's right next to the natatorium there, right next to the pool.
Northeast School District.
Right, yes, at Blossom. And so they were laid out and they had material on the tables and everything else. But for some reason, they decided that they weren't going to give a presentation on what the new curriculum was that they were considering. And they didn't give out any material for you to take home with. And you could basically walk around and look at things. And so it was totally not transparent. And they wouldn't answer any questions. So I understand that since that time, that the issue is the same, that parents can't find out what's in the sex ed program. And I know that for the distance learning during this last semester, that they said that they wouldn't be doing distance learning for the sex ed program because the material was too sensitive. Now, if you're going to present this material to the students in class and you can't send it home for the parents to see, then is this something that you should only be receiving in your home in a brown wrapper that may be considered pornographic or something of that sort? Don't know. I know that one of the modules was taken out of the program. So you have because it was inappropriate. So if you have a curriculum, a program that you have adopted, but part of it is not acceptable, then my deal is why did you change from the existing successful program that was reducing teen pregnancies, that had a track record, that was abstinence-based as required by state law, or a program that you're afraid of people examining?
What did they allow it to be presented at a board meeting or trustee meeting?
No, they don't do those types of things at board meetings. What they do, they had an orientation for us, for candidates, and they went around and started with the board members, and they gave, for some reason, it was an orientation for the candidates to learn what their duties would be if elected to the board. And the board was there, but then they started with the board and they gave kind of like a pep talk for each one of them. And then they got to the candidates. But they tried to talk the candidates out of running. And I had previously met with some board members from a couple of other school districts to get an idea of what was involved in their experience. And they told me that, well, part of their duties were being on committees. So after I had that written down, but through the evening, I didn't ask the question about the time commitments, because they were stressing that the time commitment was such that, for one, if you had children, you should consider dropping out. So if you're a board member and has children, then if you're a parent with children, you shouldn't consider being on the board.
This is at the candidate orientation?
This was the candidate orientation. And so after the meeting, I called back and I said, sorry, I forgot to ask about the time commitment for committee meetings. And they said, oh, well, there aren't any committees. And I said, oh, then are you sure you don't have a curriculum, finance, a building committee, these different committees? And they said no. And I said, oh, well, then you must have working board meetings. And they said, no. The process is the board is given a packet on Friday to look over during the weekend and to come to the Monday board meetings and to vote on the issues. Now, I know from looking and from listening to other people that there is no discussion at board meetings. The questions are not intended to, they're intended to, in my estimation, to get some face time in front of the camera, kind of like a reporter wants to do when they're asking a candidate or questions at a press conference. They want some face time so that they can get some high profile and get a good rating as a reporter. So it wasn't hard, tough questions. And so I don't understand how they can really understand. And the questions, like I said, didn't delve into the issues. So I don't understand how they can really understand what they're voting on if they haven't worked on the issues with the staff in committee meetings, and you don't have any lively.
Seems like just like rubber stamping.
Well, yes, I would term it a rubber stampede, where everybody is going through the same chute. When we're out there rounding up cattle, the fences are such and angled to drive the candidates. Yes, the cattle through what you would term a kind of a squeeze chute,
right.
And get them into the corral or wherever you're trying to do so that you can brand them or give them with COVID, so that you can give them some, inoculate them, right. Clip their ears or tag them or something like that. So,
so it sounds like they've streamlined the process, but streamlined a process that might not be the process, and so the lack of transparency, the lack of actual processes, and are an issue. So you mentioned, since you mentioned the sex ed education information, I want to make sure we cover most of the questions, all the questions we can for all the candidates. And so with that in mind, do you consider yourself to be pro-life?
Yes.
And what does that mean to you?
Well, that means that you're pro Black Lives Matter, but it doesn't stop with Black lives. It has to start where life starts. Life starts in the womb. I don't believe they're teaching that though in sex ed. From what I understand, they're teaching the missionary position, and they're teaching oral sex, anal sex, same sex, and basically they are teaching the children that whatever suits your pleasure, get comfortable with it, decide whether you want to try that, and then go for it. I don't subscribe to that ideology. It is an ideology, and that orientation for our students. Anything of that sort needs to be handled in with professionals in that, and start in the home for one thing, but dealt with. They don't teach it as part of a biology class. They don't teach biology as part of that sex ed course. That's where we got it. Of course, my training, we also had theology classes. And so we got it as part of theology so that you had responsible use of your body, and that you learn to respect not just your own body, but other people's bodies, and you held them for a higher purpose.
So one of the curriculum manufacturers, a company called ETR, was started actually by Planned Parenthood back in California and spun off then since. What's your feeling on abortion providers and affiliates of theirs having access to public school students in the school?
Well, they have a business plan. And the business plan is to get customers. And if people, whether it's adults or children, are promiscuous, then they are going to get more customers, because they're not going to be reserving sex for marriage. They will be doing it anywhere and everywhere. They'll be copulating like animals, as going out on a pig farm, and on a cattle farm. You know, that bull has one thing in mind. The bull or the boar, they have one thing in mind, and it's to lay every sow or every cow that they come in contact with. And I see that as Planned Parenthood's objective. And so the state law says, and my beliefs are that the best preventative for unplanned pregnancy is abstention, and the state calls it
Sexual risk avoidance?
No. The statute says that the program should be based on
abstinence-based.
Abstinence-based. Okay. Well, we teach. I remember when my children were at Jackson Middle School. I worked. We had a. Well, I guess actually it was after that. One of the parents who had children at Jackson came to me and asked me if I could get my friend to come and give them a talk on, I think it was like Red Letter Day or something like that, but it was an anti-drug program. Okay.
Like Red Ribbon Week?
Something of that sort. I don't know if they called it that back then. But so I got my friend to come in, and he was more than happy to come in and talk to the students about that. And I went to the talks to listen to him, and he went over great with parents, teachers, the principals, and everything. And it was a discipline yourself. And so that it was just say no to drugs. And it's just say no to smoking. I remember I was 12 years old and went out behind the garage. We had what we called a chicken coop. Sometimes it started out as a Christmas tree fort and then turned into what we call, I don't think we ever had chickens, but I know when I was there at home, we never had chickens. I think my brother raised some pigeons or chickens, but we had some ducks at one time for what we got for Easter. But we were back behind the garage in the chicken coop, and one of my older brother, they had some cigarettes. They had got somewhere or other. And so he handed me a cigarette. Well, I'm like the little kid on the commercial that locks himself in the bathroom, and I don't know if his name is Mikey or what, but I can commiserate with him. He lights up in the bathroom and then he starts coughing his lungs out. And I had the same experience, my head got higher, spinning, I'm coughing. And I said, this is crazy, Get rid of that thing. I'd only smoke a puff, Well, you wasted a whole cigarette, Mike. Don't do that. I'll finish it. Well, I'm saving your lungs. It's like when I'm in the truck, my dad was a roofer, and he would chew tobacco once in a while. So he had a plug of Old Mule in the ashtray. He didn't never smoke, but he used the ashtray to hold his plug of Old Mule. And so I was looking at it, kind of sniffing it, smelling it. And he said, well, go ahead and take some. I would take a little, little sniff, a little bite. And no, take, a hunk. So I took a bigger hunk, and no sooner I got that whole thing in my mouth and I spit it out, and he chewed me out. Don't waste that, Well, I go hunting with a friend who does snuff, and so, and Aggies are known, I don't know if you do it, but so some people enjoy that, but I never did get off to that. And to fill your lungs with something that we now know causes cancer, and drugs, which can kill you just like that. Abstinence is the best policy. So this same friend that went and gave the talk to the kids at Jackson Middle School, he married his college sweetheart. They were both sports athletes at UT Austin, and he married her, and they didn't kiss until their wedding day.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, it can be done.
So just say no is a good policy.
Just say no is a good policy.
Or whatever it is.
They just had their 6th child. It was a conscious decision to have that 6th child, but there's 17 years between the oldest and the youngest, and there's, I think there's 11 years between Liam and Sophie. But it was her decision. She had always said, I always wanted another baby. And so she had one, and they're doing fantastic. So
the NEISD's policy on risk avoidance for most lifestyles is just say no. So it's no drugs, it's no tobacco, it's no texting and driving, it's no. So would it be reasonable to think that they should continue that same philosophy with all lifestyle choices
no, I think that for sex, that you have to leave it up to the young teenagers to go out there and make some mistakes, so that then they can go to Planned Parenthood without their parents' knowledge, and because we have economies to support. Planned Parenthood used to get, I don't know if they still do, $500 million from the government for their programs. And they committed just this past year to take $45 million of that for their lobbying purposes. So Congress gives them $500 million, $600 million, and they take a small chunk of that and repay their benefactors. You know, we need to get rid of some people in Austin. We need to get rid of some people in Congress in Washington. And I think we need to get rid of some people in NEISD.
And so you're not afraid then, based on what you're saying, here you're saying is you're not afraid to ask the tough questions that need to be asked to represent the taxpayers, represent the parents and the children, and in fact, the teachers.
I work for the taxpayers. The superintendent works for the board, not for me, but the board collectively, whatever the board decides. We're to be oversight, not a rubber stamp for the superintendent and the staff. We're to give them direction. Right now, the superintendent determined 3 of their goals. The 4th goal, this is Sandy Huey and her interview with the newspaper. She said she named the 3 goals of the superintendent. They really didn't have anything to do with the children. The 4th goal, she said that the board added a 4th goal, and that was to listen to the students. Well, after 20 years being on the board, and you're going to start listening to people, listening to the students, but she made a point of emphasizing. She said not just to listen to them, but to pay attention to what they say and to care about what they say. Well, I'm coming in, I've been a parent for 39 years, and I cared about what people say, and children and other people and parents. I'm a good listener. I pay attention to what they say, and I take them to heart, that they're communicating exactly what they mean when they say what they mean. It's like Horton the elephant.
Here's a hoop.
No, Horton hatches the egg.
Okay.
And Horton said that an elephant means what they say, and they say what they mean. And an elephant is faithful 100%. Not 99.999, but 100%. So it's not going to take me 20 years to care about students, teachers, the parents, the teachers. Oh my gosh, you know. I talk to teachers and they say, we're happy with our job, but we wish we had more opportunity to teach how we know how to teach, and not for something that's handed down by administration. You give them the goals and let the teachers go with it. You review their lesson plans. You know, to me, the curriculum should be posted on the website. That's transparency. Lesson plans should be posted on the website. You don't have to send it home to the child. You can punch it up and go in and look at the lesson plan. And you shouldn't need a password. That's public information. You shouldn't have to go in and fill out a form for, what is it called?
To opt in or opt out?
No, for when you're running public information.
Oh, okay. So freedom of information.
You shouldn't have to fill out a freedom of information form to get publicly available information that's stored on a computer. Just give the people access to it. Give them a search engine that they can go in and say, well, I'm interested in finding this. Boom. I can pull out my phone. It's turned off right now, but I can talk to Google and say, give me this. The sweet gal comes on. I call her, who's Rosanna, Dana? What's her name? Gilda. I call my gal Gilda. Okay, so I talk to Gilda. They have Alexa or different things like this, you know. I'll say, so my gal's Gilda, you know, and I just say, you know, this, and you just 1 or 2 words, and they come back. They know what you're thinking. You know, that's scary. We've got IT people. I work with IT people that, with HEB, the guy that does their curb service program, is a good friend of mine. He can go into his computer and change his computer from his cell phone.
So the technology is there to have all the
Yeah.
information available.
And he's not just in charge of it, he knows how to do it. So the people that we have, they should know how to do it. They should hire the people to actually do it. I wanted to know how to do computer drafting. So I took a course at SAC in the evening. Government didn't pay me for that. I took the course, and then I could go back, and when I asked one of the draftsmen to do something, if he said, well, gosh, I don't know. I said, well, here, go in there and do this, this, and this. Oh, gosh, okay, well, it's a matter of training your people, educating, training, and continual training. It's the Deming principle. CPI, continuous process improvement. So
And use that to benefit and inform the taxpayers, parents, teachers, and students.
we should have a suggestion box. We should have either a hard letter box. We talk about the ballot box. What are the four? The ballot box, the soap box, the ammo box, your Second Amendment, and I forget what the fourth one is. Well, we should also have that suggestion box, but it doesn't need to be, we don't need to take an ammo can and cut a hole in it. It can be on the computer. But for people that aren't computer literate, yeah, we put a suggestion box in every school. So when the parents come to pick up their kids or to talk to the principal or the assistant principal, whoever's in charge of restorative justice or
Whatever the issue is, they can
this
easily drop it off.
discipline problems, then they can drop it off, and you get that feedback. Computers work on a feedback loop.
So what can if you're voted into office, what can the residents, taxpayers, and parents of people in District 1 and the students expect out of you?
Well, we're going to have open forums on school campuses, at least monthly. Pick a campus, and we will have come and talk with, question, whatnot, your representative. And so they'll be able to come and talk. It won't be something where we're giving them information. That information has already been sent out through the principals, through the teachers and whatnot, what the parents need to know, or through other means, through PTA meetings and whatnot. This is a listening session, okay? So that we can understand what their concerns are. We have a situation now where if somebody brings the board member a problem, then they're supposed to refer them to the superintendent or to somebody in administration. Yes, you have to have processes, handle situations, document that something has been given, but I don't know, not having served on the board, I don't know what that process entails. The problem should go to that person's representative, the board member, and then the resolution should also go back to the board member so that the board member can independently check back with the person and say, we understand that your problem was resolved. Is that correct? Are you satisfied? If not, why not? So
To have some measurement of responsiveness and accountability and actual performance.
You have a policy out there, you trust and you verify. Okay, that's that feedback loop. You're always continually checking that continuous process improvement. We had a problem here. Was that similar problem? Is it a policy problem that we have? Or is it the application of that policy that's the problem? We're not having problems at this campus, but we're having problems over here. Well, then is it because of the student, or is it because of the staff is not instituting the problem? How, are things being instituted evenly? Each situation you run into is going to be unique. Everyone is different. So you have a broad policy that provides guidance, and then you implement. You had the healthcare legislation. There was 3,000 plus pages, and they said, well, we're going to have to pass this in order to find out what's in it.
You're talking about in Congress?
In Congress. We're going to have to pass this in order to find out what's in it. Pull out your hair. That is because the legislatures don't put everything in there, even though it's 3,000 pages long, they don't put everything in it. You don't get a full working law until you hand it over to the executive, and all the executive branches start writing rules that then go into the congressional record for advertisement, but that nobody votes on. And so you're providing something that hasn't been put into law, much less a law that then is promulgated by an elected judge who overrules what your legislatures have put in.
So the process, and that's where your background as an engineer comes into having this process, making sure that they're well defined, even though they can be general, and make sure they're followed is major of major importance to you.
It's the nut cutting. It's the gnat's ass. So it's the details. Some people don't want to get into the details. Well,
I'm
sorry, but hey, yeah. So, and I ask questions, and I analyze the answer. So that doesn't, here's the question, and the answer is over here. It doesn't relate to the question. Or your answer then brings up other questions that then you have to go through your flow chart until you get to the end with a satisfactory result at that stage of the process.
So if you're elected, what I heard you say some very good things that people can expect. Is there a last thing you would say that people can expect if they elect you as a trustee of District 1 for Northeast Independent School District?
They'll be able to call me. I don't answer calls. All my calls, I'll let them go to voicemail. I don't answer calls if I'm busy with something that is that needs my attention, or if I'm driving. So I grew up when we didn't have phones. The only phones we had were dial phones.
Right.
So you actually got a dial tone.
But you're good to call. You're good at calling people back. Being responsive, so they can expect a phone call back.
Yes.
All right, very good.
It may be. Please call the superintendent. But we've noted it. I have notified the proper person, whether it be the superintendent or somebody in a particular department, that you will be contacting them. So they'll be expecting your call. And let me know how it goes.
The lost, forgotten art of good communication. What so District 1 is a large area. Would you share with people what the boundaries are of District 1 so they know? And you said Churchill High School is the main high school.
It's the only high school, but some of the students in the district may opt to go to one of the magnet schools. Lee has a number of magnet schools, so they may actually be going to choose to go to one of the magnet schools. Excuse me. But the district is somewhat gerrymandered, because even though Harmony Hills, all the students at Harmony Hills go to Eisenhower, and all the Eisenhower students go to Churchill, the whole neighborhood of Harmony Hills votes for the board member in District 1.
Okay.
So, you know, I don't know how that came to be. But so that, and there's a disparity in the number of voters in the different districts in the 7 school districts. I have like 36,000 voters. I know one of the others has 40 or 45,000. Some of them are less than 30. So I know you want to look at maybe geographic lines and pick a geographic line and see how it, but they've had to kind of snake up and grab Harmony Hills. Maybe that was a population deal, rather than taking part of Castle Hills, which is right on the north side of 410. So basically my boundaries are 410, north of 410, east of north side, which is pretty much at Lock Hill Selma, and then over to 281, and then up and south of Bitters Road.
Past Wardsburg Parkway, but south of Bitters.
Yes.
Okay. So, all right, so big area, and Churchill High School being the primary high school, the only high school there. And so it gives people an idea if they're in that area and that they have been observing what's happening with schools and school districts, the school district, and they want to get involved in the election on November 3rd, then they know that what to vote for, who to vote for, and based on what they've experienced. So this is a nonpartisan election, even though it's going to be held in a presidential election year, and the election was moved from May until November 3rd this year. It will be a long ballot. This election will be your name, as well as Sandy Huey's name will be listed on there, way down at the bottom of the list, and our multiple screens passed where they vote for president, and being a nonpartisan election. How would you describe yourself personally and politically?
I'm an independent. But I guess to label things, I would be considered maybe a liberal conservative. Liberal in the defined, not in the political sense that they have ascribed to liberal now. They call left-leaning people, left of center, liberals. Well, to me, I go by the definition of liberal. That is open to ideas. And so I'm listening, I'm opening. Yes, I have opinions. Now the board says you're not to bring your own opinions to the board. So I don't know whose opinions then we're using to make our decisions on. But I have opinions, but I'm open to listening to others. I have certain things that I live by and I will not change. I was brought up, those are my bread and butter, my go-to, that I live and die by. I literally die by. But that's God, country, and family. I would say God and family and country in that order. So those are sacrosanct. So if somebody wants to tear down neighborhoods, burn down neighborhoods, if they want to do away with the Constitution, then no. They may have certain problems, but unless you're working within the system, if you want to tear down the system, then you're going to get a Somalia and what we did to Libya. Tore down their situation and turned them into a horrible situation. I was working down in Zambia, and I got concerned because Gaddafi was buying up some of the utilities in other countries. What he was doing was trying to create a situation. You can say all you want about Gaddafi, and he did some bad stuff. But he was trying to unite Africa into what you might call the United States of Africa, I guess. And so that they wouldn't be governed by colonial powers. They could have a say in their own affairs. Well, that was one reason that Hillary got rid of him. She was the impetus to get rid of him. And so they, capitalism is a good system because it provides, somebody comes along and they determine that there's a need in the community. And they go about to try and satisfy that need, whether it's a business or whatnot, whether it's a philanthropic endeavor. Some people do that. They'll set up a business, a nonprofit business to do that. Some people do it to make a living then. But they provide that service. But when the government gets involved to help businesses, then what you end up with is a perversion of capitalism. And they call it now crony capitalism. But I think we need to divorce it from capitalism. It's actually just cronyism. They don't use that, that's my term, but we have cronyism. And so what we have is cronyism in a good part of the world. We need to mind our own affairs at home here in the political realm, help other countries, but not go in and try and tell them how to run their business, whether it's their religion, whether it's their political philosophy, but it seems like we get involved when because we're trying to help somebody's brother-in-law or uncle who's in business trying to make a buck off the poor natives in Zambia, Rwanda, Somalia, or wherever we get involved in.
So would you could describe yourself as an American traditionalist, and you said independent and in the classical sense of the word liberal, but and that preserving the heritage, the history of this to help the people.
I'm a strict, I don't know if you call it strict constructionist of the Constitution. If it says it in black and white, then we don't need some judge to reinterpret that, to go on some penumbra of a, what is it called? Of an emanation in their terms. We're making this decision on a penumbra. Forget about what's written in black and white, but these poor souls by committee. Again, you have a board and they decide, they vote, and then they go with what they decide. We had a committee in the Constitutional Congress and then with the Constitution. But before that, the government that we had before the Constitution, what was that called?
Just the convention, the Constitutional Congress?
Before the what the colonies were.
The
colonies, the Continental Congress. Okay, we had that, and that was all by committee. And you had dissenting opinions, and when you read their stuff, there was a whole lot of fireworks in their rhetoric. They didn't agree. But once the was decided, then the country, the colonies, the country moved forward with it. But when you have somebody come in and they want to reinterpret what's black and white, to me, if there's a question about what's written, then what we have is something that's ambiguous and it needs to go back to Congress where it originated for them to rewrite it and make it clear.
Okay, very good. So, let's talk about some other issues real quick, and just we can go to yes, no, or add in. You know, we covered virtual classrooms during COVID-19, but should schools be allowed should schools allow students to pray in school?
Somebody said there's no way you can keep them from doing it. Unless the schools indoctrinate them into an ideology that says that it's wrong to pray in schools or anywhere. So you should be allowed to pray. I know they want to do institute a meditation program, a yoga, and have mindful meditation. Well, how is that different than somebody wanting to pray? If you're going to have a class and teach people how to do mindful meditation, well, then why don't you call the rabbi, the imam, the priest, the deacon, whatever, in to teach the kids some mindful meditation and teach them not just the Indian way of doing it, but teach them the multicultural way that people have done it throughout and are doing it throughout the world. That's education.
Okay. And you addressed parental access to learning materials shown to children, and needs to be open access to that on the website. How about pre-K for SA? It's coming up. It's been 8 years, hard to believe, or just under 8 years, and that's coming up for the voters to decide on throughout San Antonio, which Northeast ISD District 1 is part of, and most part of. Pre-K for SA will be on the ballot for renewal for another 8 years. It's an eighth of the sales tax to provide education, free education for children who qualify for it in San Antonio at 4 different locations. What's your input or opinion about pre-K for SA?
Well, I've learned a little bit more about it, but when you look at the figures, I didn't understand why the city of San Antonio is getting in the education business. It's not in their charter. They can't maintain the schools that they have, the streets that they have. I can take you to a middle school right now that's full of chug holes that hasn't been repaved in over 10 years. That it's a horrible mess right in front of a school. But the city is more involved in trying to educate, doing the school district's business. You have people that finally got fed up and they said, we're going to opt for a charter school. Why is that? Did you do a study on why you lost students? It shouldn't be a surprise to you that you have 2 elementary schools that are flunking right now. One of them being Harmony Hills Elementary. The other one's over in the, what's that city over by Converse?
Live Oak?
No, the military city.
Not Justin or Randolph?
No, it's Randolph area, but starts with a W. Windcrest. We've got an elementary school in Windcrest that's flunking. How can you, with the, I don't know what the population is, not geriatrics, geriatric, what is it called when you look at
makeup or
when you look at the
Demographic.
I don't know what the demographics is for that school, okay? But how can you expect your students to excel when the state has to come in and tell the school district that the school has flunking? Where is that CPI, that continuous process improvement, where you're monitoring yourself? You're continually, they talk about grading the teachers. You have to grade the teachers, you have to grade the staff, the administrators, you have to grade the board. And look at this, you know, we have flunked. If we have an elementary school that is, it's not the elementary school that flunked. It's the teachers and the staff that are running the system that flunked. They didn't go in and do corrective measures. I mean, those two are just the latest. You know, a year or two before, there was another, and they've come in and said, well, okay, it's not going to be an elementary school anymore. We're going to change the makeup of it. We're going to call it something else to try and get around the requirement of bringing it up to snuff so they don't educate children.
So what are some, sort of the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Northeast ISD? What are some good things that Northeast ISD has done?
We've got wonderful teachers. You know, I was at the polls during the primary, and one of the teachers says, I've been here said, you know, your sister-in-law she was wonderful when she was our principal. She was fantastic. She worked at Ridgeview. And then they moved her over to Oak Meadow because they were having some problems. So, but at both schools, she was fantastic. I know people from church that worked teaching the teachers that worked. He used Ridgeview as the base of operations for them. They would go out to different schools and they would use that as the base of operations. And they said, oh, she was just fantastic. You know, this lady has been a teacher for 30 years. And she, you know, said, oh, you know, your sister-in-law was a fantastic principal and everything else. I mean, you could see her crying because she just passed away. But she said, I think I'm going to be quitting because there's too much paperwork. Well, you know, we have board meetings, but we have no minutes of board meetings. I heard the superintendent say, well, we shouldn't have to wait 5 or 6 months to get minutes of board meetings because we're recording it. All you have to do is go to the computer and say, print it out. Have the secretary, whom I'm running against, have the secretary read it over, check it, have some staff read it over, check it, you know, have the secretary read it over because the computer doesn't always get that translation right. Have them read it over, make any corrections, bring it back, you know, or send it out to the board members. Read this, you know, beforehand, right after. Shouldn't take but a split second, a COVID second. Mm-hmm. And then you can have, everybody can read the board meeting minutes. That packet that you get, it ought to be on the computer. Things that are handed out at the board meeting, they should be part of the board meeting minutes. It's not there, you can't find it. The little orientation that we were given, that wasn't even posted. It was the first part of a board meeting. That wasn't even posted until we asked, how about that? Well, then they posted it as a separate video from the actual board meeting. Well, it's all one. You know, so somebody's not minding the chicken coop out behind the outhouse. Yeah. So I think we need the septic tank drained.
You mentioned her name a couple times. Your opponent.
I don't think I did.
You didn't once, but let's talk about your opponent real quick, and would like you to start with something that is good that you might appreciate about her, and then talk about the difference in what you are. So I believe Sandy Huey is the incumbent and who you're running against, and so what's something you appreciate about her, and then areas for improvement.
I don't know her. I know that she's had children in Northeast, and she's been on the board. I know that she served on, even though she says that the board takes so much time, I know she's also served on the state board. The state Association of Boards, which is a conglomeration. She's the representative, the Northeast representative, and has served as a director on the state board of Association of School Boards. Well, you know, I don't think we'd have schools that were flunking if maybe she spent more time. But so she's dedicated to certain things, but I don't know how good her priorities are.
How long has she served this position?
20 years. Now, I commend her on wanting to get involved with the school district, but I don't know that she's bringing a business expertise and a business mindset to the, you know, I mean, I bring that to all of my activities, whether it's starting and running a safety seat program in coordination with the state in Amarillo, whether it's running the Boy Scout Special Olympics in Amarillo, whether it's being a loaned executive with United Way, getting involved with St. Vincent de Paul and Meals on Wheels, and various other AMBUCs in Amarillo. We provided special needs children with bicycles that were made to their particular disability and requirement. We worked with the special needs teachers and found out exactly what they need, and then ordered the bicycle custom made for that individual. And that was our only goal in life, is the Amarillo Businessmen's Association. You know, so I'm a, you know, doer.
And it's your first time to run?
Yes.
Okay, so have you ever run for any other political office?
No. I'm like Trump. You know, back in 1980, Trump was being interviewed by Rona Barrett. He said, "Well, why don't you run?" He said, "Politics is a tough game." He said, "It's a mean business." You know, and I've found that out. It can be a tough business. So there's in talking with the teachers union, I went there, I was open, there was 15 questions, I answered them beforehand, shared them with everybody, shared them with anybody that wanted to listen, you know, shared them with the people at the newspaper, with other people who were asking me questions too. I said, "Oh, but by the way, here's questions I've answered for another organization." I got to the teachers union. The only thing they were interested in was charter schools. They didn't ask me about education, about the children. So I started asking them some questions about charter schools. Well, they didn't want to answer my questions. I was trying to get information, but you know, when you know, charter schools are part of the capitalist system. They're providing a need. They would go bankrupt if they didn't have students. If the people were satisfied with what they were getting, with the product that Northeast was providing. When you say that we are going, one of the goals of the superintendent was to market. That's a goal, to market, not improve the curriculum so we don't have failing schools, improve the instruction, to market the district. You know, Campbell's is going out of business because they changed their product. When I go to buy a Campbell's soup now, it's not the Campbell's soup that I grew up with. And so you go into the store now and you don't have all the different Campbell's soups, and what you do buy doesn't taste like it did before. And so people go out of business. School districts are losing their students to charter schools because they're not providing a product, and they don't know why that they had a precipitous drop in enrollment, that the people opted for charter schools or to get out and go to a private school, which comes out of their pocket. And so you can't market a bad product unless you're a snake oil salesman.
Well,
And a good product is going to market itself.
right, absolutely. And so I heard you say that teachers are the number one, the great teachers at Northeast ISD are the best thing about NEISD. Are there any other things you'd say that are really, you really appreciate about NEISD?
The PTAs are wonderful. I know my daughter is intimately involved in PTA. We were involved in PTA. And so that's what makes a school, is the parent involvement. Not just waiting until the children get home and maybe helping them with homework, but actually getting involved and making the environment in the school, helping the teachers, giving the teachers the support that they need, making the teachers feel appreciated. They talk about they're losing good teachers. You don't lose good employees if you treat the employees right. Your salary is one thing. It's benefits. It's showing appreciation. It's not treating them like, dirt. But, I can say I'm out of school on these things because I haven't been on the board. One of the teachers that worked for my sister-in-law, she was a brand new teacher. And she said that my sister-in-law, one of the things that she told her, she brought her in and she said, this first year, she said, get to know the students, get to know the parents, get to know the school. Don't worry about how you're going to do. Relax, get to know things. So the first thing is to go to learn how to be a board member. I have certain ideas. I need to go in and, put those in throw those out. Those are not what a board member's duties are,
So you've been told?
We have been told, yes. One of the board members said, you have to leave all your opinions at the door. So, but the thing is that I'm going to come in there and I'm going to learn what the board members' duties are. And so that's going to take some education and training. And so you don't just go in there and we can get a new pastor that comes in and it doesn't talk to the parishioners and starts changing everything around, and whatnot. And you say, how come there's nobody in the pews anymore? Well, that's because you did something to hack them off. You didn't get to know your parishioners. You're not here for yourself. You're here for them. You're here to be a servant. Jesus at the Last Supper got down to teach the disciples, you are to be servants. Do as I do. Wash people's feet. So you go in there, my clients, I don't know what you might call them, Meals on Wheels people. They're all old, some of them are in not so good health. And so they look forward to me coming and I look forward to going and visiting with them. I don't drop the meal off. I go in and sit down and talk to them. If I've got that particular day, if I've got 10 people on the route, I could get that done in, maybe just 15 minutes. No, I may stop off at the store and get Mr. So-and-so, I'm not going to name him, get him some fruit because he likes some fruit, and so I haven't seen him in a week. And so I know that he probably enjoys some fruit. So I'll stop at HEB and get him some fruit and go in, here you go. I'll stop in and talk to Mrs. So-and-so and visit with her son a while too,
So you anticipate one of the first things you do if you're elected is using that as an opportunity to get to know your constituents, the residents.
Find out what the duties are of a board member and then get to know the residents of my district.
Good. And what are some resources you have available for voters to get more information about you? I know you had a couple of pieces here. Do you have a website?
I've got a website. So votemikeosborn.com. Is it on here? votemikeosborn.com. And I'm also on Facebook. Just look up Vote Mike Osborn on Facebook, and that'll get you there. So appreciate your support. Appreciate your comments. Leave them on Facebook. Email me. My email is on there. My email is mosborn01, not 01, 01 at IEEE.org. That's I followed by 3 E's. That's the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers.org. So it's mosborn01 at IEEE.org.
And we've got about 2 minutes left to share with everybody. What you'd like to leave them with some thoughts in that 2 minutes, and tell the voters anything else about you.
I care about not just my grandchildren, I care about your children. And I want them to have a wonderful education. I don't want them to just go to school. And you talked about religion. Part of education is not just the 3 R's. There's also a spiritual side. I didn't say religious side. There's also the spiritual side. That includes the emotional side of getting the education. Children can't do that if there is harassment, if there's bullying in schools. And so I'm there to make sure that your children that they have the opportunity to be the best that they can be, and to work with the parents, make sure that parents work with the teachers, because this is a cooperative effort. We can't do it alone. Some famous or infamous personage, she did have a quotable quote, and she said, "It takes a village." Well, it takes a district, it takes a city to take care. It takes a neighborhood to take care. The neighbor called me the other day and said, "Hey, Mike, I saw on my phone that somebody walked up to my door." I said, "I know, I saw him too. I already called the police." So, you look out, we have cops in our neighborhood, citizens on patrol. And so everybody looks out for everybody else. I grew up in a neighborhood. We moved back to San Antonio to grow up in an extended family. That extended family is not just relatives. So it's not just your religion.
All right. Well, on behalf of the San Antonio Family Association, I want to thank you again for watching out and getting to know Mike Osborn, who is running for District 1, Northeast Independent School District. And we went a little over our time. Appreciate you watching with us, but I hope you had a great chance to get to know Mike Osborn. He's a great guy, very likable, very amiable, a man of his word. And we look forward to having Sandy Huey and all the other candidates for Northeast Independent School District join us and have this conversation, get to know them during this COVID-19 pandemic, and that is a health pandemic as well as a political pandemic. We're having there's less opportunity to get to know people, less opportunity to have public forums, and we hope that this provides some voter education and opportunity for you to get to know the candidates who will be representing, who you'll be voting to represent you. So again, thank you very much. We will close the session. We will not have a session next week. Next Monday, we're going to have one on 2 Mondays. We'll actually double up and have 2 interviews at 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. 2 weeks from today. And we look forward to having that continue the conversation and get to know the Northeast Independent School District candidates who will be representing you. So we will finish this time with a prayer. And I want to thank you again, Mike, for joining us. And we wish you well on the campaign trail, that it's a good experience for you, that you're able to meet and visit with a lot of the residents, and that out of it, you're able to connect and serve those people and have that servant heart that you mentioned. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity, Patrick. God bless you.
So we'll finish in our prayer and praying for our country, our state, our county, our city, and the Northeast Independent School District and all its inhabitants.
May I interrupt you at the moment?
Sure.
We didn't do a pledge of allegiance when we started.
We did, and I apologize to our viewers. It is part of it. We've got the flags you can see behind Mr. Osborn, and I do apologize for that. And would you like to lead us in those pledges? And
sure.
And that we can, as we ask our children to do every session of school.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. So there's always time to do the right thing. And so thank you, Mr. Osborn, for holding me accountable and to make sure we get those pledges in there. And thank you for joining us. So we'll conclude this session of Get to Know Mike Osborn, candidate for Northeast ISD District 1, which encompasses Churchill High School in the area, by praying for our country, our state, our county, our city, and NEISD. God our Father, giver of life, we entrust the United States of America, the state of Texas, Bexar County, and the city of St. Anthony to your loving care. You are the rock on which this nation was founded. You alone are the true source of our cherished rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Proclaim this land for your glory and dwell among your people. Send your spirit to touch the hearts of our nation's leaders with an intense desire to fulfill their responsibilities, to protect individuals, marriages, families, and long-term domestic prosperity. Open our public officials' minds and all people who live in America to the inestimable worth of human life, to the responsibilities that accompany human freedom. Remind your people that true happiness is rooted in seeking and doing your will. Through the intercession of your Holy Spirit, grant us the courage to reject the culture of death, indifference, communism and socialism, egalitarianism, environmentalism, and totalitarianism, and bless us with the desire, strength, and fortitude to be courageous conduits to help bring about a new culture of life, freedom, responsibility, marriage, and family. We ask for your divine assistance to help us be and remain faithful to you, and for our collective petitions to your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. And I welcome you to visit our social media places for San Antonio Family Association, and that's sanantoniofamilyassociation.com, as well as on Facebook and Instagram, San Antonio Family Association, and on Twitter, SAFA, @SAFA Family, SAFA Family. For questions, comments, constructive criticism, you can email us at info@San Antonio Family Association, info@San Antonio Family Association, and even call the SAFA number, 210-928-7232. So thank you again very much for your time and attention, and we are very appreciative of your concern for the future and direction of NEISD and this country. So may God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America, Texas, San Antonio, and NEISD. Have a great day.
Thank you, Patrick. You made that easy. All right.
Let's see if I can get that.